Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? Adjuman Syndrome coming to you guys here today with another deck tech. So today we're going to be taking a look at a standard deck, and it is Junk Tokens. So for you guys that are unfamiliar with the color combination Junk, it is a alignment of green, white, and black. And this is a deck that's becoming fairly popular in this Return to Ravnica season of Standard. So we're going to break it down here today, but if you guys have any suggestions for decks that you would like to see, please leave them down in the comments below, and be sure to check out the playlist in the description where I have all of my previously archived decks that I've covered. So, we're going to jump into this right here with the land base first. We have 24 lands here, and the first set of them is going to be Overgrown Tomb. So we have a playset of Overgrown Tombs. Likewise, we're going to have a playset of Temple Gardens as well, taking advantage of all of our shocks. So playset of Temple Garden. We're also using Sunpetal Grove, so we have a playset of that. And then we have a playset of Isolated Chapels. From there we have our utility lands. We're using Gavony Township, and we're using 2 of them. So, taps for 1 generic mana to our mana pool, and for 4 mana, 2 generic, 1 green, 1 white tap. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that we control. So later on in the game, we can buff up all of our creatures a pretty substantial amount just by leaving the mana open and doing it either as a response when our opponent's attacking or something like that, or at the end of their turn, or even on our turn. But the more common thing to do is to wait until the end of your opponent's turn and just make all of your dudes bigger, unless some combat situation would force you to do it otherwise. But from there we have Vault of the Archangel, so we're only running 1 of these, and it taps for 1 generic, and it also has a 4 mana ability for 2 generic, 1 white and 1 black, and creatures you control gain Death Touch and Lifelink until the end of the turn, which is pretty substantial, especially when your creatures are a little bit bigger. So, Vault of the Archangel makes them a threat and also gains us back a pretty decent amount of life. From there we have our basics, so we're running 2 basic forests. We have 2 basic swamps, and then we just have 1 plains. So 24 lands total here. And now we're going to take a look at the rest of the deck here. So, first off, we're starting with our creatures in ascending order. So we have Avacyn's Pilgrim. So he's a 1/1 for 1 green and taps for 1 white mana to our mana pool. If we can get him out turn 1, then we can effectively play a 3-cost card on our second turn, which is pretty nice. So we have a playset of the Pilgrim. From there we have Borderland Ranger. So I'll get an English one here. Borderland Ranger enters the battlefield, and we get to search our library for a basic land card and reveal it, and then we get to put it into our hand. And he's a 2/2 for 3 mana, so if we're able to go Avacyn's Pilgrim into a turn 2 Borderland Ranger, it would definitely be nice. It happens fairly often, but it's not always the case. But Borderland Ranger is definitely really nice in assuring you that you get the appropriate mana that you need, and also hit all of your land drops whenever you need to hit them. So we have a playset of him. From there, we have the big bad Thragtusk, so 5/3 for 5. Whenever he enters the battlefield, we gain 5 life. Whenever he leaves the battlefield, we get a 3/3. So, as you guys could imagine, we're running a playset of him. Thragtusk is just really good in the format. There's no reason not to be running Thragtusk in a deck like this one. And the fact that he makes a token once he leaves the battlefield is also fairly relevant, especially with Intangible Virtue and stuff like that. But from there, we have Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. So he's a 4-cost planeswalker, 1 white, 1 black, double generic. His +1 makes a 1/1 black vampire with lifelink. -2 gives us an emblem where creatures we control get +1/+0. And -6 he gets to blow up 3 creatures / planeswalkers and then we get to return them to the battlefield under our control. So Sorin is definitely really, really awesome. The -6 is definitely really relevant, but being able to make the emblems where you just have that +1/+0 anthem for your creatures is really nice. And he creates tokens too, so gotta love him. So we have 2 Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. From there, we have our Garruk Primal Hunters. So with Garruk, we're running 3 of them in the deck, and he's also very tremendous in power. He's a 3 loyalty, 5 cost. 2 generic, triple green, which is a little bit intensive, but not a problem for this deck. Green is the major color in the index that we have. The +1 gives us a 3/3, which is really nice. -3 lets us draw cards equal to the greatest power amongst creatures we control. And -6 gives us 6/6s equal to the amount of lands that we control. So the ultimate is definitely really nice. It's never a really guaranteed win condition just because of cards like the Tension Sphere and Sever the Bloodline, but Garruk is definitely really nice in making 3/3s and letting you draw cards if you can work it that way. From there, we have our anthems. So we have Intangible Virtue, giving our creatures, or token creatures, +1/+1 and Vigilance in a 2-cost enchantment, which is definitely really nice. So we're running a playset of the Intangible Virtue just to have some nice anthem action going on there. And from there, we have Collective Blessing as well. So even though this card is just such a huge, tremendous card as far as limited goes, it actually bridged the gap into Standard Constructed as well. And it gives creatures we control +3/+3 for a 6-cost enchantment. 3 generic, double green, and 1 white. Whenever we are able to resolve this and let it just sit on the field, it's just such a huge enchantment to have, especially if we have a ton of creatures already. So 1 Collective Blessing just to make all of our dudes really, really nice and huge. From there, we have our token generating cards. So we have Midnight Haunting. So it's an instant speed, 3-cost card. And we get to put 2 1/1 flying spirits onto the battlefield. The instant speed definitely does make it really nice. You're able to respond at the end of your opponent's turn or in response whenever they're swinging with stuff. And you're able to chump with them and so on and so forth. But the instant speed is definitely really nice. From there, we have Lingering Souls. So same thing in a sense. It's a sorcery speed, which if it was an instant speed, it would just be tremendously awesome. But you get to put 2 1/1 flying spirits, and it has a casting cost for 3, flashback for 2, 1 generic, and 1 black. So you're able to cast it and then flash it back for an even cheaper cost, which is definitely really nice. So play set of Lingering Souls. From there, we have Selesnya Charm. So I'll grab the 1 English one that I have here. So we're running 3 Selesnya Charms. 1 green and 1 white. We can give a creature +2/+2 and trample, or we can exile a creature with power 5 or greater, or we can put a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance onto the battlefield. So Selesnya Charm is nice because it's versatile. It's removal for big things like Angel of Serenity, Thragtusk, Thundermaw, Hellkite. It also can make a token if we're trying to just be really greedy and just win by overpowering our opponent. And it also is a semi-viable combat shenanigan with you being able to give the creature +2/+2 and trample. And the trample could be relevant in winning the game if your opponent chumps with something small and you have something fairly big. So we're running 3 Selesnya Charm. It's just, overall, it's versatile. I do really like it as removal, however. From there, our last card that we have in the main board is also Ultimate Price. So another instant speed removal that we have. It's 1 generic and 1 black. Destroy target monocolored creature. Now, if this card is irrelevant for us, based on what we're playing against, we'll just side it out. But definitely having the outlet for such a powerful removal card like this one is really nice in the deck. Especially because there's still a ton of very viable targets that we can hit into. So Ultimate Price, just kill a monocolored creature for 2 mana. Very, very effective. So 3 of them. So that's the main board that we have here. Now we're going to take a look at the sideboard that we have. So for the sideboard options, we have Sigarda, Host of Herons. So this is just a one of in the sideboard. It's a 5/5 for 5, flying hexproof, and spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause you to sacrifice permanents. Sigarda is really huge up against mid-range builds because they don't necessarily have a really defined way to actually deal with her, except for trading with other flying creatures like Vampire Nighthawk, Thundermaw Hellkite, or Bloodgift Demon as well if they're running it. But Sigarda is a real nuisance for a lot of mid-range decks if they don't have a way to actually deal with her, because traditional removal is not, you can't target her. So she definitely trumps a lot of those types of builds. So we want to have one of her in case we run into those types of decks and we're just able to take advantage of them not being able to get rid of her. From there we have Centaur Healer, so we're running 3 of these in the sideboard. It's a 3/3 for 3, enters the battlefield, and we gain 3 life. So Centaur Healer is really nice up against other really stompy types of aggro decks. The zombie builds, the red deck wins builds, anything that tries to be really quick and just overextend and win early on. We can side into Centaur Healer and just be able to get back some more life. On top of the Thragtusk that we already have, but earlier on, Centaur Healer does let us stay in a little bit and rebound. So 3 Centaur Healers. From there we have Armada Wurm. So Armada Wurm's a 5/5 for 6 with Trample, and whenever it enters the battlefield, we also get another 5/5 Worm with Trample, which is definitely really nice. The 6 mana, and you get 2 5/5 creatures. I like setting this in against other aggro decks that are less overwhelming than what I'm going to be playing. So if their creatures are smaller than what I have, I like setting in Armada Wurm just because I'm going to have 2 big creatures for that 6 mana that they have to deal with, and they're not going to be able to swing over them. So the Armada Wurm definitely does take care of any just overwhelming board state that your opponent may try to get. So 1 Armada Wurm. From there, we also have Restoration Angels in the sideboard. So 2 Restoration Angels, 3/4 for 4 mana, flash, flying, enters the battlefield, and we get to take a creature, exile it, and bring it back into the battlefield. So I like setting this in on top of setting in Centaur Healer as well, and also Armada Wurm, but the Armada Wurm is a little bit more of a stretch, but Restoration Angel with Centaur Healer and Thragtusk is definitely really nice to gain back life. It also assures that creatures like Thragtusk and Centaur Healer can survive any type of removal that you may have. The exiling won't work with tokens, obviously, but with Thragtusk and Centaur Healer, it's definitely a good shenanigan that you can work off of. So we have 2 of them for that, and it's just it's a flying creature that can swing in on its own and deal damage. So we have 2 of them in this side. From there, we have Sundering Growth, so we have 2 of them. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, and then populate for 2 mana, hybrid green or white. The populate may or may not be relevant, but being able to destroy an artifact or enchantment is fairly relevant against the Detention Spears, Oblivion Rings, any other enchantments that are annoying. We just have an outlet to be able to get rid of them, and if the populate's relevant, if we're populating and getting a 3/3 out of it, or another 1/1 flyer or something like that, it's always good. We always benefit at least a little bit out of it. So 2 Sundering Growths for enchantment hate and artifact hate as well. From there we have our hate for Reanimator. We have Rest in Peace, so we're running this as a 3 of in the sideboard. So it's an enchantment for 1 generic and 1 white, and whenever it enters the battlefield, it exiles all cards in all graveyards, and if a card or token would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, it's exiled instead. So we have the 3 Rest in Peace just to make sure that our opponent's not playing off of graveyard synergies. Then we have Silklash Spider. So Silklash Spider is a 2/7 for 5, and it has Reach, which back in the Onslaught days just read that it could block as though it had flying. And it also has an ability for X amount of mana and double green, where it deals X amount of damage to each creature with flying. So late game, I like to have this up against stuff like Thundermaw, Hellkite, the Olivia Voldarens, any annoying flyers like that. But it's also very good for dealing with other Lingering Souls, just to have a cleared board to actually be able to swing in. So Silklash Spider is nice for that. I do like using it as sideboard tech for flying threats, and it actually does get the job done. The 5 mana is pretty nice. It's a 2/7 with reach. It's pretty rigid. It's a fairly solid creature as far as being able to block goes, and it can block a lot of threats. So that's why I like to have it in the sideboard. And then the last copy that we have here of a card is Sever the Bloodline, which we have 2 copies of them. But Sever the Bloodline's nice, just traditional removal. It's a sorcery for 4, exile target creature and all other creatures with that same name as that creature. And it has a flashback for 7, 5 generic, and double black. So that is the main board and the sideboard that we have here for junk tokens. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this deck. The entire deck list is down below, and be sure to check out the playlist down in the description below, where I have all the previously archived decks that I've covered. So please be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content. And until next time, guys, have a wonderful, fun-filled Magic the Gathering day.